Radicalization to violence is the process by which individuals are introduced to an overtly ideological message and belief system that encourages movement from moderate mainstream beliefs toward extreme views. Radicalization can occur because of a multitude of factors and influences, and is not limited to any single ethnic, cultural, religious, or political group, and may not always lead to violence. Radical thinking becomes a threat to national security only when it leads an individual to engage in or advocate and encourage violence as a means of achieving political, ideological, or religious goals.
You who believe, answer the call of Allah and His Messenger when He calls you to what gives you life.
Radicalized individuals who have mobilized to violence do not fit a specific stereotype. They can be male or female, and they can range from young adolescents to elderly individuals. They can also have different cultural, ethnic, social, and economic backgrounds. An individual's path to becoming a violent extremist typically begins with an aspirational stage that is primarily marked by a series of protected behaviors. When such benign activities are coupled with a pronounced incitement for violence, along with other contextual factors, the reporting of such observable behaviors may assist in preventing future acts of terrorism, be they foreign or domestic. Certain individuals may never go beyond a purely aspirational stage of radicalization to violence. However, the tipping point between being aspirational and pre-operational is a critical occurrence. An individual who engages in pre-operational behaviors linked to a known or a particular planned criminal operation or with terrorist operations may very well demonstrate behaviors that align with those outlined in the ISE SAR Functional Standard Version 1.5.5 and should be reported in accordance with the process defined by the Nationwide Suspicious Activity Reporting Initiative, or NSI. As a state and local partner, you have an important mission in the protection of your community and the country from all crimes, including acts of terrorism. As you serve on the front lines and engage with the public on a daily basis, you are trained to recognize suspicious activities, and your daily duties put you in a position to observe and document them. Individuals involved in extremist activities sometimes exhibit similar behaviors and actions as they prepare to carry out their activities of attempting to join and/or provide material support to foreign-based terrorist organizations. These behaviors may include applying for passports, participating in firearms and physical training, and giving away or selling their possessions, including cars and electronics, in conjunction with an expressed desire to travel overseas and engage in violent extremist causes. Other actions frequently undertaken by radicalized individuals include conducting online research and utilizing social media to glorify violent extremist acts in an attempt to mobilize others to violence. The widespread use of social media and English messaging is being used by terrorist organizations including ISIL and Al-Nusra Front to recruit foreign fighters. ISIL has established one of the most expansive and highest quality social media programs of any terrorist group, attracting significant online support. This support includes social media-based activity by U.S. persons in Syria and in the homeland, who further spread ISIL's messaging over popular social media sites like Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. There are observable behaviors that individuals might exhibit that may indicate radicalization and activities meant to incite violence by violent extremists. It is important to note that some of these activities may be constitutionally protected. Any determination of possible radicalization to violence should be supported by additional facts that justify reporting the behavior to appropriate authorities. These activities are general in nature, and any one may be insignificant on its own. But when observed in combination with other suspicious behaviors, particularly advocacy of violence, they may constitute a basis for reporting. Such behaviors apply to either individuals intending to travel out of the country for the purpose of committing acts of terrorism or those who intend to attack domestically. Behaviors indicating radicalization to violence include communicating with known or suspected homegrown or foreign-based violent extremists using email or social media platforms such as Twitter, Facebook, or Ask.fm. Active participation in violent extremist web forums or social media platforms to recruit or support terrorism. Participation in weapons training or paramilitary exercises and reconnaissance and surveillance activities in a manner that is reasonably indicative of pre-operational planning related to terrorism, particularly in conjunction with advocacy of violence. Destroying computers and taking down social media profiles after expressing a desire to travel to areas with known extremist activities. Suspicious training behavior, such as mimicking specific operational conditions at gun ranges or gun shows, or practicing assault tactics at paintball facilities. Applying for documents and identification needed to travel, either real or counterfeit. Advocating that their religious, cultural, or national group requires violent defense from an external threat. The following behaviors are associated with indicators of pre-operational acts of terrorism that are being planned domestically. Acquisition of suspicious quantities of weapons and ammunition or materials that could be used to produce explosives such as hydrogen peroxide, acetone, gasoline, propane, or fertilizer. Suspicious weapons purchases, such as attempted purchases by individuals providing inconsistent or suspect identification, refusal to fill out the appropriate documentation, or issuance of vague or cryptic warnings that are violent in nature during purchase. ISIL, Al-Nusra Front, and lone offenders in the United States, inspired by these groups, present some of the greatest threats to U.S. security since 9/11. It is imperative that we, as the protectors of our communities, understand this threat and know how to combat it to keep our neighborhoods, cities, counties, states, and nation safe.
I'm Tom Smith, Chief of Police of the St. Paul, Minnesota Police Department. During my career in law enforcement, I have advocated for community policing principles and have a long history of working with many diverse communities, which is one of the benefits of working and residing in St. Paul. Among the most sizable communities in Minnesota are Somali immigrants. In fact, more than half of all Somalis in the United States live in Minnesota. The terrorist group Al-Shabaab has been linked to Somalia and is currently launching attacks from Somalia across East Africa. In recent years, several Somalis residing in Minnesota have been enlisted by Al-Shabaab to fight overseas. Within the last couple of years, several people with ties to our area have traveled to Syria, and others have tried to travel there before federal authorities intercepted them. What's even more disturbing is that very young individuals are joining ISIS. As you can see, this issue greatly concerns me and affects our community. As law enforcement officials, how can we solve this problem? Law enforcement needs to remain aware of the current threat in the community it serves and partner with local groups and civic leaders to prevent the radicalization and recruitment of young people. This is a long-term investment to combat a growing threat to the safety of our community members and officers on the street. It is important to maintain the civil rights of citizens, but we must also remain vigilant of community members with a propensity for violence, who intend to cause harm to innocent civilians. The increasing number of individuals being recruited and radicalized threatens our communities, our safety, and the lives of families who are impacted by these actions. Law enforcement and community members must work together to keep our cities and citizens safe.
Terrorism cases have demonstrated that an individual's social ties, such as friends and peers who have violent extremist views, can strongly influence individuals to adopt radical beliefs. Working with local communities will assist law enforcement to identify those individuals who are developing violent extremist views and may seek to take violent action.
If they couldn't get to Syria, the backup plan was an attack on American soil. Saeed Kimitov allegedly told an FBI informant, I will just go and buy a machine gun, AK-47, go out and shoot all the police.
Communities will be better situated than law enforcement to recognize when member behavior has changed and differs from the norms of that community. To effectively identify and counter radicalization to violence, it is essential that law enforcement develop and maintain positive relationships, trust, and transparency with the diverse communities they serve. These relationships take time to form and a sustained effort to maintain. The first step in this process is getting to know your diverse communities. Law enforcement personnel must educate themselves about the customs, history, and religions in their domain. In most instances, law enforcement officers should take the lead and initiate contact with the community, and in particular, its leaders. It is essential to recognize the importance of utilizing community partners.
The same community policing strategies that have helped law enforcement for years to prevent crime and improve public safety can be used to effectively address and prevent terrorism. The important partnerships that community policing builds are critical for hometown and homeland security. State and local police officers are able to work closely with local residents, business owners, community groups, and other local stakeholders to detect suspicious activities, prevent acts of terrorism, and build communities that are resilient to violent extremism. Look beyond the common traffic stop and routine call for service, and be aware of the threat. The danger is real, and you never know when you could be the target of a criminal act.
To succeed in combating terrorism, we must remain intelligence-driven. We must continue to scan for looming threats, effectively share information with the right people at the right time, and continue our close collaboration with our partners around the world. This includes the U.S. intelligence community, federal, state, local, and tribal law enforcement, and of course, public and private organizations. Close relationships with our partners are necessary for the success of both our national security and our law enforcement missions. We must do all of this while emphasizing all we hold dear: the protection of privacy, civil rights, and civil liberties. Thanks for your service, your protection, and for your vigilance.
We all need to be more vigilant, continue to receive training, and report suspicious activities. This video and other resources available will help you to increase your awareness of existing and emerging threats in your town and aid police-community relations. I urge you to engage your community and stay safe. Thank you.